You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Philip Danisi and David Gassman, two friends since childhood who have launched the firm Danisi and Gassman in Midtown Manhattan to focus on venture capital and corporate law. How are you both?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Thank you, Benny, for having us.
Yeah, of course. Congratulations on this new venture. Super cool.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I've been seeing the videos on LinkedIn, and you have like some nice content, and I'm very interested and excited to talk to you a little bit about your story.
Yeah, we're very excited to be.
So it is a little different setup on this podcast, as we discussed. We have three of us. We've done this once before, where my sister was involved with. She helped me interview the Pop Brothers at Law, like a year ago or so. They're out in LA, and so that was fun. So, from what I gather is, you two finish each other's sentences. You're like the perfect business partners. You knew each other growing up, so now you come back together and you're able to form this alliance and practice law. So, so tell us about like just a background before we get into some of the other stuff. Like, when did you both meet each other in childhood? Like, where were you, and like, where were you both from?
We actually grew up together in the same town.
Okay.
And met in junior high school. So it was 7th grade. We're 12, maybe 13. And next thing we know, we're on a field trip in 8th grade. Where were we? To Pennsylvania, David?
Hershey Park.
Hershey Park. And we're rooming together.
Nice. Really? All right.
And I came back to the room one day thinking nobody was there, and this guy popped up in between the beds and scared the heck out of me. and that's when I knew I'm either going to kill this guy or he's going to be one of my best friends. And so it turned out okay.
That's hilarious. So where are you from? Pennsylvania or from New York?
We both grew up in Long Island.
Oh, very nice. Okay, that's awesome. So David, you went to Wisconsin College, right, undergrad?
Yep.
And Philip, you went to Maryland.
I did.
So how did you end up at New York Law School at the same time?
No, I actually went directly from university to law school. I would have liked to take a year off, but I always knew I wanted to become an attorney.
Okay.
It just would have prolonged it, so I went straight in. And I was 1 year ahead of David.
Right. Okay. And so all right, so David, you took a year.
Yeah, okay. I took a year off. Yeah,
that's all. I took a year off too before law school. So you used an interesting word, David, in when I was reading something that you said to me. You said,
sure.
And I like to ask this to our guests, like, what was the Eureka moment, like that you both sort of knew I want to be a lawyer? Like, did that now, Philip? You said you always wanted to be one, and like. I
always knew, and that's what's funny is right out of law school, accepting a law job, I actually went the opposite direction to Wall Street. But yes, I knew from when I was young. So there was nothing that I was doing where all of a sudden a light bulb went off, later in life, maybe high school or in college when I had to choose a major. And I said, no, I knew it was law. It was law.
It was law. Yeah. What about you, David?
Not necessarily, although I grew up around it. My father has been and continues to be a practicing attorney for his entire career, and but I was not 100% sure, but I did feel like going to law school would be a great foundation for whatever I wanted to do.
Okay.
And I think that was a key thing for me, and I think as time goes on, I think that has proven to be a smart choice, and we can get deeper into that as to why. But I think that's definitely a foundational moment for me, where once I was in school, I was able to really formulate what I wanted to do and what my interests were and how to kind of marry the two.
Okay. And what did you do for that year in between?
Wow. I was, interestingly enough, I went down to Atlanta for a bit, and I was interning with CNN. I had someone down there, and I kind of learned the media business a little bit and got there. And then decided to come back to New York and start law school.
Okay, gotcha. So
Yeah.
Philip ended up in finance. Like you were about to go into law, and then you kind of got swayed into like a different. You were working what at like the SEC, but then you saw like a different type of job that you wanted to do, and like you.
Yeah, well, I first started off, I was always interested in Wall Street. It just interested me. So New York Law has a great program where they do an externship. So you get credit while you work. It's, working experience. And my second year of law school, I got the opportunity to go with the legal department of the New York Stock Exchange, market surveillance.
Okay.
So, they're on the 9th floor of the exchange itself. So you police the exchange. And that was just fascinating, walking around the exchange floor. So I got recommended for my third year externship. I was with the SEC. And then you really saw the way securities are monitored and policed and enforced. And that was just, I was in love with securities law and the whole, and just out of happenstance, I had somebody who I was acquaintance of just came to me 2 weeks before starting the law job I accepted and said, why are you going to practice law? Come do derivatives on Wall Street. I didn't even know what a derivative was. I had to go home and look it up. We didn't have Google then.
Yeah, seriously. So how does that sway you like to do that all of a sudden? Was it was it the earning potential of Wall Street? Is that
it was, but it was the excitement. And when I did the research on it, I just said, it's very difficult for the success to happen doing derivatives. It was very risky at the time. It was high end of finance. But I said, you know what? It's worth it. I'll give it 1 year. What could be the worst thing that can happen? I'll just practice law 1 year later. And and I ended up retiring almost 20 years to the day I started, pretty much 1 month shy of 20 years.
Wow,
that it went.
That's amazing. Congratulations on that. That's incredible.
All
right. So David, like you did sort of like a different route. You were into like entertainment marketing. You were in law school, like reading those magazines. Like I wanted to get that in your lawyer story. On Instagram, I cut it down a little bit, but like that's cool. Like that shows a passion. You were trying to read like about everything entertainment.
Yeah. No, thank you. It was one of those weird things where, and I look back on it, and it's one of the lessons learned. And that was, to me, was if you can let your sort of your passion and your interest be your career, if you can figure that out. And sometimes it takes people, different paths and different ways for them to figure that out. Hopefully they will at some point. Now, there are certain realities in everyone's life and certain things that you have to do, and there's bills to pay and things like that. Right. But the key for me was I was so fascinated by the cultural aspect of films and TV. I went to see every movie. I read every trade magazine. I wanted to know about the business and the entertainment companies and the conglomerates that own the entertainment companies and who's running what studio and all that stuff. And I learned about that on my own. But once I got to law school, I said, wait a minute, you can kind of marry your interests with your career. Like Phil said, I had the opportunity to intern with entertainment law firms at the time was New Line Cinema, when they were making movies like Seven and Dumb and Dumber, and Polygram Records that had Def Jam and Island and Mercury Records. And I was in the building, as they say. And to me, that really opened my eyes. And I said, I can get involved with this industry somehow, some way. And that's what really, that was a foundational moment for me.
And you feel that even having a legal education, do you feel that it could help you in sort of anything that you want to do? Do you feel more prepared for the real world?
Oh, it did.
100%. Yeah. Well, Phil, you can go first and I'll follow.
Go ahead. I mean, you certainly took it and used it as well. It helped in everything I did, not just the way you get taught to think. There is a definite amount of credibility you get from it, and have the education, but also in every area that you're employed in. Like, for example, I always worked for the big international financial broker companies. So I had employment contracts that I had to sign. They had non-competes. There were bonuses with payback penalties if you left. You had non-disclosure agreements. So your entire law career really establishes you to be a well-rounded person in the workplace, if you're going to go that route. And for me, I mean, my path was so much different from David's, but David could tell you, I'm sure it was very similar what you encountered, even when you were starting out, right? Reading contracts.
Sure. I mean, we were looking at all kinds of agreements from every aspect of the business. And to Phil's point too, I do think it gives you a basic foundational understanding of whatever business you want to get involved in. And I kind of, the more this time goes on, the more I realize that, when students go to school, they see this class, that class, whatever class they have to take for credit, and it's something to check off the list. But behind each subject matter is an actual profession and a potential career path and a livelihood.
Right.
And where else would you get that? If you go to medical school, you're going to be a doctor in some area of practice.
That's right.
And so if you go to law school, you can be an entrepreneur, you can be anything that you want with the legal background, the framework of each topic, of each subject. The law is inherently involved. And so to me, that's such a major foundation to use as a springboard. And I think another thing that's a little more abstract, which is a way of thinking, which is this kind of way of really rationally looking at things and understanding cause and effect and how things are pieced together. And I'll probably go on a little bit about how you have to unhook some of that part of your brain, especially when I got to LA and got into marketing, because there's a balance there, which I can talk more about. But it's quite an interesting foundation and background.
And also, David, would you agree? It also allows you to kind of understand what the person across the table from you is thinking.
Absolutely.
And being advised, and like what they may be being advised.
Yes, because everything that
I found that a lot.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Well, a lot of times people, if you understand that business that you're involved in, a lot of times, students or even lawyers will just look at a contractual language and say, okay, this is what this means, this is what that means. But within each industry, it has an actual ramification for that business. It's there for a reason. It's not just verbal, it's not just legal language for the heck of it. It's representing, to Phil's point, somebody's position in some negotiating point that they want. And then you have to learn what are the different ways that I can maneuver that, position that, harness that, whatever it may be, depending on what side of the coin you're on.
Right. No, that's interesting. And I also think, like, as Phil said, about credibility. Like somebody goes, you go to law school, somebody you immediately have that credibility. Maybe you go to law school. But I also like what both of you are saying, because a lot of people say, I mean, you're sort of in the position that you can use your law degree, I think, for other things besides practicing law. Like you two are perfect examples that you went out in the world and used your legal education in your other industries and were able to be successful, because I think a lot of people get down about that. Like, it's hard to find a job. They don't know if like it's going to be useful, but I love that. What I'm hearing is that it helped you in these kind of pre-careers before you launched your firm.
There's also the comments you get, David, I'm sure you got them, where it gets thrown at you. Like say you're going to a new company and you say, on page 4, section 21, I really have a problem with this clause. And oh, great. Yeah, because we had to hire someone who's also an attorney, right? This is going to be.
Yeah, right. I know.
Right. They got more than they bargained for, right?
If you're an attorney, would have been easier, and you get that comment a lot.
Yeah, it's good until they expect you to know everything, though, right?
Sorry, that's true. That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
David, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, Benny, it is an interesting thing that I've thought about a lot lately, especially, is also because I had segued into the marketing business for many years. It's kind of a different way of thinking. And as I mentioned about the law, teaching you about logic and teaching you that, 2 + 2 = 4, and here's all the ways. There's a lot of gray involved, but here's how the cause and effect works. And yet when I got to, enmeshed in the marketing world, that taught me, combined with the legal foundation, that really gave me, so I think, a balance of skills that helped me the most. And in marketing, it allowed me to think less in terms of pure logic, more in terms of how can I tell a good story? How can I be relatable to people? How can I network better? How can I I think in terms of like legal briefs, legal briefs, obviously you're going to be an advocate, but you're also writing objectively. What's the law? What's, IRAC, the way they teach you to write. And then when I started writing marketing proposals, I was writing these in-depth, thorough, detailed, bullet pointed, like pages and pages that had the best ideas in there, but they were buried.
Right.
And I learned to unhook that part a little bit,
Okay.
and then sort of balance the two so that I would write or think or speak in a little more headlines, a little bit more attention grabbing,
Gotcha.
and then you get a little bit more into the more granular details.
Okay. Yep.
And I definitely see, as I'm sure Phil can attest to this too, we definitely see a need these days for that, more of that type of thinking, because you can't, as Phil always says, we can't just hang out a shingle anymore and expect people to show. So that we really have to bring that storytelling, that relatability, that marketing expertise to sort of try to stand out a bit. And you brought up a great point about content. I mean, the first thing you mentioned to us was videos and content.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, so I mean, you have to do the work. You got to be good.
Right.
But that's one of the things that, you know, if it was in my story arc, I'd say skills that I took back with me after that journey.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you think it's possible? Has it been difficult to come back to the law after a sort of a first career?
Well, I could say for me, it not only wasn't it difficult, and it's funny, Betty, earlier you said we finished each other's sentences. When I had retired from Wall Street, I think it was what I found the main ingredient of most people that have success is a passion for doing what you want to do. And kind of, it's why I left Wall Street. I had done it and I fell out of love with it. I never wanted to wake up and not be excited to go into an office. And it took about 4 years of being retired when it hit me that this is now what I wanted to do. It was not difficult at all. I wasn't daunted by it. And I knew I wanted to do it with my childhood friend. Even though he didn't go to Wall Street, but he had a similar pivot. He went to Hollywood, and finishing each other's sentences, we met. I said, meet me at a diner.
Yeah.
And we're sitting across from each other. I'm like, listen, I have an idea. Obviously, this is about 6 months, almost a year before COVID.
Yep.
And I said, I think starting a law firm with our experience, I didn't even finish the sentence, and David just interrupted me and goes, I'm in.
Yeah. That's awesome.
True. But there's a wrinkle though.
Yeah.
There's a wrinkle in there, and I'll.
What's that? Tell us.
Listen, you got to do one thing here.
I got to pass a bar exam.
Yeah.
And that's so that's a whole wrinkle right there. But I pushed through, and
wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Congratulations. That's not easy to do.
Well, if you indulge me for 2 quick seconds, and I'll tell you how not easy it was.
Yeah.
And I'm not patting myself on the back.
Yeah. No.
Because Phil mentioned that the COVID period.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a while since I had formally studied, and then I had finally kind of got better at understanding what I was looking at, and really kind of bearing down and hunkering down, and I was all set to take the New York exam in July of 2020.
Yeah.
And then COVID hits.
Right.
And so they said, okay, we're going to delay it by a month, and then we're going to delay it by another month. And now instead of being in person, it's virtual. And then they said, and I'm simplifying the rules a little bit, but the New York bar exam, you're not eligible to take it, amongst other things, if you had graduated prior to 2016.
Oh,
I know I look very youthful, but I did not graduate in 2016. So
there has to be some like constitutional challenge. There has to be something.
Well, I'm sort of getting there, and Phil doesn't believe me, but it's still the truth. And forgive me for my earpiece. So I said, okay, I'm sure you're aware of the UBE, the Uniform Bar Examination, where all these different states sign on to. They have some kind of reciprocal relationship. So I said, okay, I'll take the New Jersey version of the exam. And I'll hopefully pass New Jersey. And if I pass New Jersey, this will transfer into New York. Great plan. So I'm studying, and sure enough, New York says, oh, you cannot transfer your score if you hadn't graduated prior to 2016. They had certain restrictions, certain objectives. No need to get into that. But bottom line is, I'm now studying for an exam, and we had for New Jersey. Nothing, there's anything wrong with that. It's great to have another state. But Philip and I obviously plan to practice in New York. Yeah. So I just plowed ahead. I said, I'll study for New Jersey. I'll take it. And sure enough, I passed it. And right around Christmas of 2020, I got my result. I called up the Board of Bar Examiners in New York. The executive director of the Board of Bar Examiners answered the phone 2 days before
Wow.
Christmas. I was shocked. I told him my predicament. He had given me sort of the layout of how to send a petition for a waiver.
Wow.
And I put together a waiver petition. And about a week later, they came back or so, and they said, "We're accepting your waiver, and now you're eligible. With this passing score, you can transfer it into New York."
What kind of a waiver is that? That's incredible.
It's sort of without getting too deep into it, it's sort of I would say sort of like, I guess, like qualified as like a hardship waiver.
Okay.
And I had told them, which is all true, about I was working full time, I had studying for the exam, and I was told this, and I wasn't very respectfully, but there was just quite a saga there, and they had accepted that what my proposition there, and from there we were, I won't say smooth sailing. We still had the pro bono to qualifications that New York has, which is a great
Right.
experience and very important. And then finally we moved forward and it got all set up.
But you didn't have to take the New York bar.
Well, no, because the New Jersey score transferred it.
Well, no, that's amazing because I passed Connecticut and then I
Right.
waved into Mass and Maine.
Right.
So yeah.
Oh, wow.
Right.
So that's awesome. Congratulations. That's a big deal.
That's sort of my Tales of Costanza if you're a Seinfeld guy. So
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's that's a great story, actually. I mean,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So tell us about what was the date of the opening of your firm?
Well, originally, or when we really opened, it was a 2-year delay with COVID. So it was,
right.
it was the first week of January 2022.
Okay.
It was the delay with COVID, and then David getting waived in, and then, of course, having to go through the whole process of the pro bono work, and then getting sworn in was delayed. So we just kept being put on ice, kept being put off, and then we launched in the first week of January.
So, okay, so you both always talked about it. You opened this firm. So, like, how has it been so far? Like, is it difficult to get clients? Like, what basically separates you right now? What separates your firm from other firms in New York?
Well, that's an interesting question because we came in with a little bit of a head start for what we wanted to do, the area we wanted to focus on, because I just found that as I left Wall Street and I was 45,
Yep.
many of my colleagues on the brokering side, and all my clients were the banks, the head traders of banks. So I found during that time, this really led me to come back and knew what I wanted to do and what area I wanted. Many of them were leaving the big corporations and the big banks as they progressed in their career and got older, and they were going on to their own ventures, whether it be venture capital funds, firms, or launching their own startups. Both my colleagues and my clients were progressing towards there. So they were asking me constant legal advice while I, in those 4 or 5 years I was retired, and about each area they were going into. As I said, whether it be for funds, venture capital, startups themselves, or their own startup. And it was always along those lines. And that's when everything hit and the bulb went off. Said, I want to use my degree. I want to build something that's my name. Because in finance, when you work for an international company, as big as you are, you're still one of a couple of thousand people worldwide.
Right.
And I thought it'd be great now, the next challenge, build something that's our name. And then it coincided with, this COVID new mentality of the great resignation. With what I was finding, the people progressing towards that were my colleagues and clients, you also had the great resignation of people that now are saying, we don't want, during that time, we're not going back to the same job we had, which is getting in at 8:30. You don't leave till 5:30. You get 4 weeks a year. We're going to now, it's a quality of life. We want to pursue what is our passion, what gives us another lifestyle. And that whole great resignation shift as people that were coming to us as well that we knew, because they were really our age, maybe a bit younger, some a bit older, saying the same thing. You're handling already people that are making this shift. And venture capital and the corporate law umbrella is really everything for anybody that's going into a new venture, their own venture, joining something that's existing and investing in it. And they just coincided. So it really started, it had a built-in clientele from the start that made it easy to choose what we were going into.
So what is that, like, if you were to talk to somebody who doesn't know much about like business law and all that, like what in your definition is venture capital?
Well, venture capital is sort of a stage in the fundraising process where your
Okay.
major investors would get involved
Okay.
in funding a company. Now, you may have with certain businesses, they might start by what they call bootstrapping, which is really doing it on their own,
Yep.
or the next stage, or mixed with that some friends and family, or then angel investors and seed investors, and you kind of progress along with what
Okay.
stage of a company you're at, where your products are, if there even is a product just yet. And then at some point along the lines, you might have these venture capital firms, and this is actually not changed, but in addition to your traditional venture capital firms that invest large sums in some of these startup companies, you also start to see more hedge funds and alternative investors
Yep.
in startups as well, and that's firms like Tiger Global and companies like that. So you're seeing a lot of that, but it takes so many different forms,
Right.
and it takes so many different rounds of financing depending on the company.
And
And
it
I
takes
think, yeah,
actually
go ahead.
of itself of venture capital. We've had a few people who have gone to join venture capital firms.
Okay.
By definition, they invest in startups.
Wow.
And it's their own, they are venture capital firms or funds.
Okay.
So it falls under that umbrella as well. We've had a few people doing that have progressed from the banking side to go to form their own venture capital funds or join an existing fund.
Right.
Okay. So what has been like the highlight thus far of opening your firm?
I mean, I would say for me, it's it's sort of, especially with our personal relationships and business relationships and people that know us.
Yep.
There's sort of like a inevitability to the two of us working together in a way, and I think people kind of see that, and they see how well it works together.
Yep.
And how well we work together. And
Okay.
from a more tangible standpoint, I think it's people that we've known for a long time who we can now work with and have started to work with in a business capacity above and beyond how we knew them in the past.
Okay.
And I think that there's a deep level of trust there. I think that we both have throughout our careers been able to not only create relationships but nurture them and maintain them. And I think that's a key thing. I think people know now that when they work with us, they know that we're hands-on. It's just the two of us. We're not passing things along to anyone else,
Yep.
at least not yet.
Not yet.
And so I think that's a key, and I think we have a real passion and drive for what we're doing, and it's really having those people already that we know or referred from people that we know, because there's just a deep level, and Phil, you can tell me if you agree, but I think a deep level of comfort there in our ability and in our personalities and our track record,
Okay.
individually and collectively, to do the best work for them.
What I see it as, to be the succinct answer, Benny, in my view, is the excitement of literally every day. It's exciting to come in. And I know I'm starting the day with my best friend from childhood.
It's nice.
And we're handling these cases of people, when we just described venture capital or startups and what they are, we're hands-on involved, seeing something come to fruition.
Yeah.
From a start of a concept,
Yeah.
to putting in place terms for investors, fundraising, and then seeing the company actually start forming the LLC and then all becoming operational. And it's really, that's the excitement and reward. Came from a world of just putting a trade together that would happen between a buyer and a seller within 30 seconds, sometimes 10 seconds. And then you just move on to the next trade. You don't see what you don't care about what turns out for that trade.
Right.
Two gambling against each other. So seeing this, doing it with somebody where you're hands-on, watching really something go from you have a client that has a concept, a thought, a passion. It's what their vision is. Maybe it's their dream. They just left a job and they're putting everything in this, and we help them form it. And then it comes to fruition.
Yeah.
And to see
awesome.
how people they are, if we do competent work and the advice we give them is competent, and it becomes successful for them, it's really, to me,
Yeah,
irreplaceable.
that's interesting, because in legal work you have people who tear things apart, right? Like you have people who put things together, and you guys are like helping people achieve their dreams with that. So
we like to think so, yeah.
yeah, no, that's incredible. And actually, David, I wanted to go back to something you
Yeah.
said about the importance of having your passions and
Mhm.
your interests merge into
Mhm.
your career, because I think that's like something that a lot of people struggle with. So,
Yep.
do you have any wisdom on that? Like, is it just, try to do something you love? Like, what's your advice?
Well, I mean, it's both as simple as that and way more complex than that. But I'm glad that you asked. And I learned. I'll give you a classic example. I mean, I learned the hard way. Well, everything I mentioned to you about like law school and when I was there, and I had all these interests in the business, and I was reading the trades in class, and I was going to the movie. Everything about it, I was consumed by it. And I started my third year of law school to back then writing letters to these different talent agencies and movie studios. I wanted informational interviews, and I wanted a job after
Yep.
law school. So we'll see where the chips fall. And one of the interviews I had was with William Morris Agency here in New York. And I had my suit and tie, and I was all ready to go. And I'm in law school. I'm a professional. I'm coming in there like
Yep.
I'm coming at you hard. I'm ready to go. And I got a letter a week later that I did not get the job.
Yep.
Okay. And I was shocked, but I realized I was also a little bit naive because I went in there and I felt, and I remember this, it stayed with me for a long time. I went in there thinking this is the way I should be. This is the buttoned up, this is the lawyer. I should talk about sales experience. I should talk about, and I said to a friend of mine who also was interested in the business, and I said, I didn't get the job. I don't understand. I read everything. I know all about these companies. It's what I'm fascinated by. It's every. He goes, did you say that? And I said, no.
Yeah.
He said, why not? That was the biggest lesson I had because that's what that moment, and I kid you not, it's really true. That moment hit home for me, which was, I'm not saying just follow your passion blindly if you don't have a direction and if you can't pay the bills.
Right.
But I do think there's a way for you don't necessarily translate your persona into business person or legal or lawyer. Keep that element of yourself that is passionate about it and sell that and use it, and marry that with your education and your foundation and your professionalism. And that has stuck with me all along, because the minute I went on interviews after that, including out in LA, I walked in there like, I know I got this job before I even walk in, because now I'm telling you, I'm not filtering. I'm telling you exactly why I belong in this room. And that kind of thing, that's marketing too, in a way. And so that's the one. And I don't want to sound preachy because everyone's different, but to answer your question, I mean, that kind of thing is what I would.
But it also was your passion. It was your passion.
Oh yeah.
Your passion that came through.
It was all along, and that's why I'm saying to tell people who are interested in different things to trust that interest and to trust that passion for whatever it is, and carry that with you. Don't bury it. Don't transfer into professional mode if you lose what you think can work for you. And that's what stuck with me, and hopefully that kind of answers what you were asking.
For sure. And by the way, when you go into some of these interviews as a law student, some people will feel that they have that against them, because a lot of people who are law students, they're like, well, why don't you want to go work at a law firm?
Sure.
So you really do probably have to let that passion emanate from.
Absolutely. And I think to Phil's point before too, though, on the counter to that, there is sort of this halo effect, like, oh, you're a lawyer, you're a smart person.
Right.
So it's a matter of balance, like everything else in life. It's a matter of balancing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think I think people sort of value it different. Like I think it actually can be pretty subjective, like who the interviewer is. Like some people think like they might want you as they see your education, they see you're a lawyer, they might want you in there. Other people might think like, well, this guy knows more than me. Or has maybe not more than me, but has like a bit different education than me.
You don't know what they bring into it. Right.
Yeah.
You don't know what the past is and their thoughts of people that have an legal education, or how they've dealt with lawyers. Maybe they've been scorned. Who knows?
Yeah.
You never.
And to add to what Phil just said, a lot of times, we've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs and and people with existing businesses that have come to us for help. And the first couple of things that we talk about are less about agreements than they are about finance or about marketing or about business development.
Yeah,
and that's one of the key reasons why we came together as well, is to use our backgrounds and relationships and experience to be as, for lack of a better word, indispensable as possible.
Yeah.
Up and down the line. So maybe, we kind of help create our niche in what people might think a lawyer can do for them, above and beyond, let's say, a tried and true handle this agreement, which we would do, obviously, and do it well. But it's kind of that array of skills that we hope to leverage.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. By the way, we have like a minute 30 until we need to go into the next session, but I do have some more questions.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask if either of you had any mentors, like legal mentors.
Yeah, I did. I still am very good friends with my first mentor at the legal department of the stock exchange.
Okay.
I was my second year law student, and he was the first person. We were on the 9th floor of the stock exchange, which is on the ground floor. And he would, the one who was like, maybe my first week, he was like, "You want to see something really cool? Come, let's go downstairs." And we're walking. I'm like, "This is from TV, from the movie Wall Street."
Yeah, the movies. Yeah.
What you're watching, and we were that legal department, stopwatch, when you see in Wall Street that he gets flagged. And I'm like, "They don't seem to like us too much." He goes, "No, we're the police. They don't like us."
Oh, right.
And the ringing and the paper being thrown and the hand gestures and the hand signals. It was, and that to this day, he's been instrumental in everything that I was considering forming here. And he's consulted with us on a few different cases we've been handling. And still a very close friend that I would still call my mentor.
That's great.
Tell him to take a look at Blue Star.
Yeah,
Blue Star Airlines.
Blue Star Airlines. So
the Wall Street reference, yeah.
So you would both say it is important to have a mentor, or no? Or mentor is important?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm, and I've been lucky enough just in in life, to watch my dad as an attorney, and to be terrific at what he does, and set an example for me, just personally and professionally, and also for other attorneys. He really is extremely well respected in his area of expertise, and across the state, and with the bar associations, and with his colleagues. That it's always an amazing thing for me to watch and experience. And it's all the more enriching now, because I'm formally entering the same field, albeit in a different area. And so he's been invaluable in sort of advising us when we have questions, which is often, in how to run a practice and how to handle different matters. And so that's I'm very fortunate, and we're very fortunate in that sense. And Philip grew around the corner from me, so it's not like ask your dad about this.
I pretty much lived in this house, so
right.
Or he lived in my house.
That's awesome.
Right,
no, I love that.
Like he would reach into my refrigerator and just start eating stuff, and my dad would come down and be like, "What do you do?" It's that kind of thing. So it's that kind of informality.
Did you end up going to New York? This is like, I know we're past this, but did you end up going to New York Law because Phil was there?
I don't like him that much.
Okay.
I mean, I'm kidding.
And he didn't admire me scholastically that much. That's for sure.
No. I think it was I mean, I wanted to be in the city. I turned down NYU. I'm kidding. That's a joke.
Yeah,
and also, it's cool that your father went there and you were going to the same school. That's cool.
He did. He went to school there. It was great to carry on.
Oh, your dad went to New York Law?
He did. Cool. And we actually had a few other friends from our neighborhood or from college, respectively, that went there. So it was actually, it was a fun group. It was a good group of people to go through those 3 years with. So
let me ask you, like, you've got this firm, Danisi Gassman. Congratulations, Manhattan. That's amazing. Love Manhattan. Who doesn't? Super cool, like Madison Avenue, right? Is that?
That's it. You have to come visit, Benny.
Oh my goodness, I would love to
come back and visit. We'll take you.
I would love to. I went on a baby moon with my wife used to live in Manhattan. I went on a baby moon there because I love like the statue, and we did that, and like
sure.
Anyway, so my folks are actually native New Yorkers, but anyway, this is about you guys, not about me. So,
Hmm?
have you guys fallen into certain roles in your firm yet? I mean, I know you've been sort of active. I know you were getting acclimated before COVID, but then you're sort of launched in January. Like, is one person out there sort of bringing in the business, the other one wants to like do the contracts, or like maybe do more litigation? Like, have you fell into certain roles within uh your business yet?
Dave, Dave, you correct me if you think that I'm wrong on it, but I think it's been, maybe it's because of our friendship since we're so young. It's been extremely collaborative
Oh yeah,
Okay.
and inclusive. There's
Yeah.
not a phone call that I get that I don't immediately, if it is for me, just walk right next door to his office, or we're sitting in each other's office at the time the
Yeah.
phone rings, and it could be we are to be diligent because we have started a little later. Anything we need to do or draw up, or contracts or retainers or documents, we're extremely collaborative as well. And that's just not just to be diligent. Dave, would you agree? We just like enjoy the input from each other, and we just
Absolutely.
have our input is, shows our different strengths that we have. David's great with detail, and if I move quickly, I've come from a trading background, and we kind of have a yin and a yang that seems to work.
Yeah.
Where
Awesome.
strength for different scenarios, whether it be documentation or whether it be dealing with the clients or judgment calls on investing. So I have found it to be no set role. Like I was always taught and saw and grow, with law school, like there's the rainmakers, then there are the people that do the
Right,
work,
right.
and there are the fights over who's more important. Or,
Yeah.
So that was my take on it. David, I don't know if you
Yeah,
agree.
no, I mean, I think the good thing is, I think between us and hopefully, maybe you get the sense from talking to us that I don't believe neither one of us is inside or outside. I think we're both,
Yeah.
the inside and the outside guy. Are we the same person? Absolutely not. And thank goodness we're not, because, we get along great and we know so much about each other and share a sense of humor, but we can be brutally honest, which is very, very important.
That's good.
And
Yeah, that's
and
important.
so I'm the more neurotic of the two, and I'll say, yeah, I'll own that. But you know what? Sometimes I think his instinctive reaction is better than my neurotic reaction,
Okay.
and vice versa. So I think
Right.
as long as you know that going in, we don't have that learning curve of two people who are like forced to work together because we happen to be in the same building. So you can work around that, and you can use that to your advantage. It's like
Also, I
Yeah.
think one
Go ahead.
really big point I have found is because of the friendship from the past, it's not new acquaintances coming together only in a work environment where there's ego and one
Right.
person has to prove his importance over the other and be like, I have to show, I don't know, if this guy's
Yeah.
jockeying for a certain position over me, or if he's trying to say, if I say I want something, but he's going to try to say, well, he wants it his way because it's now a power play. It just makes
No.
us like, all right, we're collaborative, I think, because of
Yeah.
that. And we're mature and we respect each other.
So let me ask. Oh, go ahead, Phil. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, that was it. I just say so it works because of that, I believe.
So let me ask you for some advice. Like, what would you tell somebody who went to law school, they went into a different career, but now they want to circle back around 20 years later and be an attorney?
Benny, it's funny if you're saying that because we're giving a lecture at New York Law School 1 week from today to students, alumni, and anyone else that wants to student on the title, The Entrepreneurial Path to Law.
Oh, okay.
So,
That's awesome.
exactly.
We'll send you the invite, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to discuss, that you follow your passion and how it can lead right back to everything can lead back to it. And it all helps you. Law school helps in the path you choose. And then your path you take, it helps you if you go back when you circle back to law.
Yeah.
And I would add to that too. I mean, I'm sorry, Ben, go ahead.
No, you go, David.
I'm sorry. I would add to that too. I mean, you're if they come out of law school and they choose a different path, what have they learned along that path? What have they gained? Who have they stayed in contact with? That's a key. I mean, relationships are so key. And I think, we're both really good at that. Phil's, fantastic at that. And maintaining those contacts in those different businesses, because you really don't know where these paths are going to cross. And I've been amazed at how people who, sort of appear suddenly if you put yourself out there, throughout your career and your life, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, our paths converge here now. So that's key. And I think, for someone who wants to be an attorney now, I'd say that legal background's never left you. There are things that you're going to have to brush up on, but you coming into it with a wealth of hands-on tactical knowledge about whatever business you've been involved in. And I just think that changes it should change your whole vantage point on what being a lawyer is all about. The substance behind the business. You understand, in some cases, I've always thought it's important with your clients, and I certainly felt that way in the entertainment world and marketing, to know your client's business as well or better than they do. And you have that experience, you have that possibility, depending on where you're coming from, to really say, I know how this works. These are not just legal principles.
Yeah.
I know the practical reality behind this, and I can trust that I've had experience with this. And I think that's a key point. And of course, also just, those relationships are key. I think that'll pay off in ways that you may not even imagine if you've maintained them.
That's awesome. So what advice would you give to a young entrepreneur? Either of you.
I would immediately say, follow your passion. That's really what I would follow your passion. Wake up and be excited to get out of bed and run into it. You can't get to work quick enough or start your day soon enough.
Right.
Don't be that person that gets up and is like, oh God, I can't believe I got to get to the office and I can't
The
wait
worst.
to leave. Have that passion where when you get up, you can't wait to get in. Whatever it is that you find that gives you that is the best piece of advice I could give anybody.
For sure.
Yeah. And I would add, know your business. I mean, really have your vision, know what, and Philip and I always talk about this, know what you don't know and get the answer for that.
Gotcha.
From people that you know and trust. I mean, really know your business, because if you want to grow it and you believe in it, you have the passion for it, but you haven't done the homework, then you're going to run into a problem. Is there value there? Really test that out. Don't be afraid to test yourself, to deal with failure, because it's going to happen, and learn from it, and be brutally honest with yourself and the people that you work with, and then you'll take it as far as you want to take it.
Okay, so where do you see Danisi and Gassman in like 5 or 10 years?
Well, I guess I'll go first. I think I see exactly. I still see us being categorized as a boutique law firm, in the sense that we haven't lost our hands-on approach, and every client that comes to us, once they leave or during, while we're representing them, they always have access to us and don't feel their case was pushed to the side or not given as much attention, even if it was not as big a case as something that was bigger, and say, because I wasn't such a priority to them because I was big. We're still a hands-on firm that cares about what we're doing, because at this point we care about the work. We're not just starting out, and it's our name, both our names that we want to be proud of. We want to be proud of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's to add to that, I think in 5 years we have a roster of clients, entrepreneurs, entities, startups, different personalities of a whole different array of industries that make us feel like our lives are enriched, our business is diverse. It's a great place to be. People like dealing with us, and we like working with our clients, and it's something that we can be really proud of. Right. And enjoy what we're doing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great answers. Did I miss anything? Do you guys want to say anything else about Danisi and Gassman, or did I?
No. We'll talk about you. We love what you're doing.
Oh, yeah, well, thank you very much.
It's fantastic. You've had incredible guests. We're proud to be on that list. It's really impressive.
Yeah. Well, you guys are awesome
doing it, because we've enjoyed every episode that we've clicked each one on. It's really great stuff, and we're really proud.
And you live up to your, I'm sorry to try to interrupt. I was gonna say you live up to the name, Lawyer Stories. Like, it allows people allows us to tell a story. And I know sometimes, especially with lawyers, they can get bogged down in legalese.
Yeah.
And this isn't I think my hope is that everyone that you talk to, you feel like they can let their hair down a bit and just be open and honest with you. And then that's a credit to you.
Thank you. Casual and comfortable in conversation. That's what I want,
Fantastic.
So I appreciate it. Yeah, I really appreciate those kind words. I work very hard to build a platform. And,
Fantastic.
It's a pleasure to have you guys on it.
Thank you, Ben.
So, all right. Well, stay right there. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. And wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.
Thank you.